And I would like to bring up my wife and let her share a few things as to what it was all about for her. This is Judy, everybody.
Well, it was really an interesting time in our life. Like Jeff said, we came from a very conservative background. I was raised in a culture where you didn't even say the word breast.
The word what?
Breast. When a woman was pregnant, she was PG. You know, if a girl was on her period, she's, you know, has her friend visiting. I mean, it was just very much, you didn't even talk about that part of the body. And all of a sudden, just in the course of regular medical treatment, had a first mammogram, and boom, breast cancer. So like Jeff said, we went to all these doctors, and these doctors are looking at the body. And besides the whole issue of life and death, what's the meaning of life, it was my image of what my body is. And one of the interesting things that I learned by going to the plastic surgeon, because Jeff would come with me, because he's a good guy. He's one of the good ones. He would come with me, and literally, the doctor's nurse, his surgical assistant, said, "And who are you, sir?"
Well, I'm the husband, of course.
And was like, "Really?" Because unfortunately, in our society, the breast is so tied in with sexuality and the woman's perceived self-value that to go through breast cancer, as hard as it is for the girls, it's even more devastating for the men. Do any of you know anybody personally who's gone through breast cancer? Mom, grandma, friend? It hits, you know, they say 1 in 9. In Orange County, they say 1 in 6 or 7 women will get breast cancer. Often it's later in life. I was young, sometimes it's women younger than I am. But often the guys peel off, the husbands peel off, because they just cannot deal with that. So it was just a real interesting situation for us to go through the whole thing, from going from a culture where you don't even say the word breast to say I have breast cancer, and all my thoughts and medical care and everything about my whole life for almost an entire year going through surgery and chemotherapy and being involved in the whole business had to do with talking about my breast. So that was really one of the things that segued and kind of got us into thinking about the whole idea of going to a clothing optional place, and there was other steps in between. But somehow that experience for me got me more comfortable, at least that part of my body. I remember even being with a group of other moms after the surgery, and they were saying, "How are you doing?" And it's like I had no problem lifting up that breast and showing them the fake one that I had built after the breast cancer, because that didn't feel like it was part of me. The other one was still, no, I didn't show that one. Fortunately, I also had a really good plastic surgeon, so when I went into, years later, we started going to a clothing optional resort. I was very proud of what had happened, and I was able to have a good positive self-image, and I think I'm one of the very, very lucky ones who wasn't devastated by losing a breast. But there are so many women and so many men who really, it destroys them. It's just too much part and parcel of what that part of their life is all about, because it's all about the body. It's all about looking good. And where else do we need to go with this?
Well, I think for us, the rocking of our world, you know, sometimes your mindset, your philosophies do not change until you run into a major embankment, such as a sickness, such as a catastrophe, you know, car accident, whatever. Then you start thinking, why do you believe what you believe about you? So,
I just add one other thing. We're in a clothing optional context where we're naked most of the time. And I've had at least half a dozen of my guests who called me and said, "Judy, guess what? I just found the love of my breast." And they're in a clothing optional context, you're able to see a person after cancer, what that body looks like. And it's been very healthy for the other women and the guys to be able to say, "Wow, there's life afterwards. Wow, she looks okay. They're still together. You can go on." I've been able to go through the whole process. Literally, sometimes I've gone to the doctor's office with a single mom who was hitting this for the first time, go with her just to kind of help her through the process. But on a very practical point of view, there's several ways you can do reconstruction of the female breast. You can do nothing. You can have an implant, like girls sometimes will just get an implant just so you have the larger breasts. or you can have a natural tissue transplant, which is what I had. So I actually technically been able to go with a girl and say, okay, call a friend of mine who's a guest, who's a nurse, who had an implant. I had the natural tissue, and say, okay, come talk to us. Come look at this. This is what it would look like if you had the silicone implant. This is what it looks like with the natural tissue. This is my experience. This is her experience, and we can talk. And it's been very, very helpful to be able to see that, because when you go through a trauma, there's nothing like being with somebody who's gone through that same trauma. You can, whatever the situation is in your life, there's some sort of a sisterhood in the bond. But that, on a very practical nature, has also kind of been what we've gone through.